In Money Watch, President Biden is hoping to make the cost of invading Ukraine too high for Russian President Vladimir Putin.
The U.S. and its NATO allies are threatening the Kremlin with unprecedented sanctions if Russia moves forward with an invasion of Ukraine.
David Lynch is a global economics correspondent for The Washington Post, and he joins us now for more on all of this. David, thank you so much for being with us. So President Biden is warning there could be tough times ahead for Americans if Russia moves forward with an invasion of Ukraine. Here's what he had to say earlier this week.
I will not pretend this will be painless. There could be impact on our energy prices. So we are taking active steps to alleviate the pressure on our own energy markets and offset raising prices.
So tell us a little bit more about what this rise in energy costs might look like and what the Biden administration is proposing to offset them.
Sure. Well, this really illustrates the extent to which in a global economy, there's no way for us to take significant action against Russia without it boomeranging back on us and on our allies to some extent. And so trying to calibrate that to get the balance right, to sort of maximize the pain we can make Moscow feel while minimizing the cost to ourselves is the challenge that the president confronts. And certainly in terms of the average American, the impact is likely to be felt through the oil market, which has already seen rising prices over the last 6 months or so. And that means gasoline prices here that now average something like $3.50 a gallon would be pushing closer to $4.
Rising gas prices are obviously on everyone's mind. What are the overall financial implications of a Russian invasion if the U.S. and its allies are forced to sanction the Kremlin? What could this mean for the global economy?
Well, the main uncertainty here is that we don't yet know the size of any Russian action, and that will probably have a lot to say about how dramatic our eventual actions are. But to the extent that the administration has gone to some pains to indicate that they've learned the lesson of 2014 when Russia moved into the Crimea and the Obama administration's response via sanctions is now widely regarded to have been insufficient. So the administration is determined to do more, and that means going after the Russian banking system, and that's going to mean instability for global markets at a time when they're already on edge over inflation and the Federal Reserve. And so it means a rocky ride for Wall Street at a minimum.
And David, President Biden, as you know, is vowing to impose swift and severe sanctions on the Kremlin if Russia does invade Ukraine. What exactly would the U.S. be looking to target, and how swiftly would Russia feel the effects?
Well, Russia would feel them almost immediately if the administration acts as quickly as they've indicated they intend to. And the initial target, and the one that carries the biggest potential punch, would be cutting off some or all of the major Russian state-owned banks from the U.S. financial system, from the dollar and from our financial institutions. This is something we didn't do in 2014. Russia's banking system is highly concentrated. Something like 5 major banks account for about 60% of the system's assets. And if they're cut off from the dollar, that means Russia's $700 billion in two-way trade annually would get much, much more difficult. It would make it extremely difficult for Russian banks and corporations to move money across borders if they were cut off from the U.S.
So, David, speaking of all these financial implications, could the cost of war be enough of a deterrent to prevent a Russian invasion of Ukraine?
Well, it comes down to a cost-benefit analysis, and we may well be able to tally up the potential costs, and we know we can make President Putin feel that cost, but it comes down to what he thinks the benefit is. And if he's determined to reap a security benefit that means more to him than it means to us, or we don't have an accurate estimate of exactly how highly he prioritizes that, it could throw off our calculation. It's also important to note that over the last 7 or 8 years, Russia has moved to insulate itself from the sort of steps that we're talking about. The Russian banks and corporations are much less dependent on foreign financing than they were 8 years ago. They owe Western banks something like $120 billion today, which is one half of what it was in 2014. Russia's total foreign debt is down by a couple $100 billion from what it was at the time. So Russia's in a stronger position in terms of what it can withstand, even as we prepare to land a bigger punch.
So much at stake. David Lynch, thank you for breaking it all down for us.
Thank you, David.